Kia ora and welcome to the second layout I'm creating using the Hello Lovely papers. I'm going to be scrapbooking a photograph from my wedding, and I'm going to be using the scrapbooking stamp set that goes with Hello Lovely as well as the card making stamp set. But first I'm going to be using the word together from the scrapbooking set. This is going to form the title of my page. The word together. Now I've put the acrylic onto the clear acrylic block and I'm going to ink it up. Because my stamp that I'm using is bigger than the ink pad, I'm going to actually dab the ink pad onto this stamp rather than when the stamp's smaller I just dab it onto the ink pad. This just seems to give it a better and more even coverage. So stamping this down, pressing it firmly so that it gives a nice impression onto the white daisy cardstock that I'm using. Now this stamp, when you stamp it, does have some white areas. This is to have so that it has a nice watercolour effect or a little bit of a slightly distressed. It's not a perfect clean cut stamp. And that just adds to the nice flow of the writing that's used. So I'm fussy cutting around this title, getting rid of as much white as I can all the way around it. This is a technique that can be used with lots of stamps. It would have been nice in some ways if this one came with one of the thin cuts that we have with some of our stamp sets. However, it doesn't, and it just gives you a bit of time to sit and spend some time practicing kindergarten skills of cutting all the way around it. So I'm going to map my photo with some white daisy cardstock. Sometimes I print my photos with a white border already, but I didn't in this case and felt it needed the white just to help the picture stand out from the rest of the background. Okay, so I'm going to trim the papers down. I've decided to use 3 of the patterned papers from the Hello Lovely set. Now this trimmer has served me well for the last 10 plus years, but it is time that I updated with one of the close to my heart trimmers. These have been, a lot of the people that have used them have said they're absolutely fabulous, and I'm really looking forward to getting one. With the papers that I'm cutting out, I'm not cutting all the way down the page. You'll notice I'm just cutting down as far as I need, taking the paper out and turning it around so that I'm just cutting what I need. This gives me 2 edges where I've got the full length of the paper so that I can use these later on for other pages, projects, cards, whatever I choose to use. So here's the 3rd of these papers that I am going to trim down, only cutting what I need. The next job is just to play with the positions of these papers. Do I want them on an angle? Do I want them spread out? Do I want them close together? I'm wanting to go for a layered look. You'll notice there that I spun the paper around. One of the beauties of having these amazing double-sided papers is that you can actually pick and choose which ones you want to use and play with the different concepts and ideas. You're not stuck with one once you've cut it. So I decided to have the layers quite close together, and I'm looking at which complements I want to use. I've decided I'll use the white heart with the gold dots, and I cut around the stickers to choose where to put these so I can replace and reposition until I'm ready and happy with what I'm doing. There's also the You and Me sticker off the complements, and then I'm going to have a look at one of the gold hearts and trim around there. These are on a nice acetate underneath, so that makes it even easier to see what it'll look like when you put it onto the finished page. So just trimming around that because I can stick that down later. And because they're not stuck down, there's always still room for me to rearrange and shift things around. So I'm going to use the card making stamp set here, and I'm going to use the Mr. and Mrs. comment as this is a photo from our wedding, and tuck that in down the bottom straight onto the Whisper cardstock that I'm using. And playing around looking to see whether I want other stickers, other ideas, and in the end I decide I actually like it simple and the way it is. So time to stick it down. Using my Tombow adhesive roller, this is a nice permanent and strong glue, so it doesn't take a lot to get it all stuck down. I need to get myself a refill. It's getting a good workout with the Hello Lovely range at the moment. Sticking the photo onto the mat. Arranging final placement where that's going to sit. And nice and centered. These mats have great measurement marks all the way around the edge, which means that papers and things can be lined up visually rather than having to use a ruler all the time for accurate measurements. It's okay if you want to use a ruler, that's just not my style. So I had a look at the pocket pages to see if any of them would suit what I'm trying to do, and trimmed one down, but as you see in the end I don't actually use it, and that's okay. I can use it ready for another page. The softness or the fineness of the lettering meant that these pocket pages, the size just wasn't right for what I was trying to do, and there's not a problem in doing my journaling down without a box. It doesn't have to be in a box. You can draw your own lines, you can just write, you could write around the paper. I could have used the little strip of the grey paper at the top, and that could have been my journaling area, but it's not what I decided to do. Okay, so finishing up these placements. Now to stick down the title, I'm going to use our fine tip glue, and the idea is to get this on fairly quickly, so get it nice and wet. If I use this glue while it's still wet, it has a permanent adhesive onto the page. However, if I let it dry a little bit, it's a semi-permanent. So you can use this to help position things, but then I would have to re-glue it if I wanted it to be permanent later on if I'd let it dry. So even though I'm ready to stick it down, I like to just sort of play around to make sure I'm making the right decision for where I want things to sit. Even when I thought I'd made up my mind, it's always a bit different. And having another look with these to see if they're going to be right. And deciding no, I'll just keep it simple. Now I do need to learn to tidy around myself a little bit better. Okay, now I'm going to actually stamp down that stamp I decided to use earlier. So putting the Mr. and Mrs. onto the acrylic block. Now because the stamp is smaller than the ink pad, you'll notice that I put the stamp onto the ink. Now I'm using, our stamps come with this little foam sheet at the back of each one, and when I'm just doing a small area or it's more convenient, I just use this instead of the foam backing on our craft mat. And afterwards cleaning off the stamp with a little bit of our spray and then our scrubber. This also helps to condition the stamps so that they're able to be used later on as well. The black ink that I use is the archival one, so it doesn't always come off the stamps completely. However, it's washed off so that if I use a lighter colour, it's not going to affect the colouring. Okay, adding my journaling just straight onto the Whisper cardstock, as I talked about before. So when I'm creating this layout, it's actually just after our 18th wedding anniversary, which is partly why I went back to use these wedding photos as a nice tie-in. So scrapbooking for me isn't chronological. It's about capturing time, feeling, thoughts of what's going on for us right now, sharing a message or sharing an idea. So this is just kind of a celebration of 18 years of marriage. Thanks for watching.